Hi everyone, hope you're having a good day. Today we have Mr. Siddharth Poddar, Head of Procurement Insights at Polestar Solutions, joining us. He has close to 20 years of experience in procurement transformation, procurement consulting, and helping Fortune 500 companies with their source-to-pay technology implementation. In his career, he has held leadership positions in organizations such as Dell and GP. Welcome, Siddharth. Thank you for being here today to share some of your insights with us.
Thank you so much, Sudha, for hosting me. Very happy to be here and looking forward to an engaging discussion on procurement analytics.
Thank you, Siddharth. So let's start with a big loaded question. Within the last 15-20 years, how do you think the procurement industry has evolved and how ready was it to address an event like the pandemic?
It is indeed a very loaded question. Well, I'll try to answer this. In my experience, I've observed two major changes that have happened in the industry over the last 20 years. Process maturity and technology adoption. The first part, process maturity, I think the processes across source-to-pay lifecycle have become a lot more structured and standardized. For example, strategic sourcing is now considered basic sourcing methodology. Operational procurement policies are very common. Organizations are a lot more aware about compliance and risks in their source-to-pay lifecycle. The second key change is technology standardization. To complement this transition to standardized processes, organizations have embraced source-to-pay technology platforms. Most of them are cloud-based. It has helped organizations with a lot of structure, workflow, improved compliance, uniformity in implementation of S2P processes. And correspondingly, this improved adoption has fueled a lot of investment in the cloud SaaS space. And we are seeing some amazing work being done on advanced technologies, such as autonomous sourcing platforms, guided buying solutions with built-in policy compliance, invoicing platforms with built-in global invoice compliance, etc. So those changes are becoming much more standardized now. However, to the second part of your question, looking at how supply chains perform during pandemic, I think there is a lot more to be desired, especially more attention has to be done on building supply chain resiliency. For example, identifying alternate sources of supply, ensuring continuity of supply, having better supplier qualification processes, as well as holistic risk management processes needs to be looked at. So those are the few areas where we continue to do good work on.
Okay, so Siddharth, it sounds like organizations are on a path of change now. But let's take one step back from all the process and the technological changes and go back to the data. With all these changes that are happening, there would be a lot of data that is being collected in the entire source to pay or the procurement cycle. So how do you think organizations are effectively managing this surge in the data?
Yes, you're absolutely right. The digitization of these processes has helped companies generate a lot of data. This was actually unimaginable just a few years ago. In fact, I think the data points have grown to be so vast and so complex that many team members may actually be just unnerved by the amount of data they have. Some organizations are doing a great job at converting the data into actionable insights. However, in my experience, most stop at just creating a simple dashboard with operational data and leave it as it is. The dashboards are frequently left to interpretation by end users who may have access, who may not have access, and who have limited efforts or put in limited efforts to actually understand the pattern of the data. Very recently, a big consulting firm did a survey of procurement organizations and identified that only 1 in 5 companies actually do advanced analytics on the source to pay data, which exposes a lot of opportunities in S2P space.
So why do you think it is that even though we have dashboards and visualizations, that procurement analytics has not been picked up yet for better insights?
There may be several reasons. Lack of training of resources, as I was saying previously, experience of end users, quality and format of reporting, more importantly, quality and availability of data, that people don't even trust their own data. However, a major cause, in my opinion, is lack of standardization of technologies in the source-to-pay lifecycle. Different functions like contracting, sourcing, vendor management, invoicing, they frequently end up implementing their choice of platforms, technology platforms in isolation. We frequently see use cases where contracting solution does not talk to a sourcing solution or does not talk to a requisitioning or invoicing platform. Organizations try to seek best-in-class technology for each vertical separately, which exposes them to risks of having several data hubs. This causes several inefficiencies in deriving insight across the source-to-pay value chain. For example, in the operations team is trying to read PR to PO data, they do not have access to the contract data to be able to actually extrapolate the analysis and articulate how much of the spend from within the contracts. So people rely solely on the data they had at hand in order to make informed judgments without seeing the other side of the story.
Okay, so Siddharth, it seems like technology is one of the barriers that is restricting organizations to harness the true potential of the procurement data. Suppose in a hypothetical scenario, if all the technology was seamlessly integrated, then how would it be? How would it look like? Could you like paint a picture of how the procurement analytics landscape would look like then?
Absolutely, I can try, Siddharth. So an integrated analytics solution will pull all the data across different procurement systems for an organization into a central data warehouse. We will then establish linkages across the different data sources to ensure that they talk to each other. And once the data is laid out correctly, we will proceed with the creation of dashboards that will pull information across different modules. To give you an example, payment terms are stored at different places. When you sign a contract, you agree on a payment term. When you issue a PO, you have a payment term. And when the supplier submits an invoice, they have a payment term. However, in the lack, when the systems are not talking to each other, you cannot compare invoicing payment term to the contracting payment term. But in the scenario I'm describing, I can actually compare the three payment terms across three different documents. The agreed payment terms from the contract with the supplier, the payment terms on the PO, and the payment terms on the invoice, and then evaluate where do I see non-compliance or where do I see exceptions being taken. That's the power of aggregated analytics, where we can merge the data and compare across systems.
Thank you for starting with an example. I love examples. So, could you give us a few more about how this methodology would operate in real life with one or two examples, if possible?
Absolutely. I have several. I can give a few quickly, 3 or 4 with you. Like we can merge purchase order data, goods receipt data, and put our own AI services on top to predict if the supplier is able to meet the committed timelines. Because in purchasing process, supplier acknowledgement is a common phenomenon where supplier acknowledges that they can deliver the goods or service at the required time. I can look at the previous goods receiving data and previous acknowledgement data of the supplier and can predict whether the supplier will meet the acknowledged timeline or not. That's use case one. Another use case could be that I can merge the contract metadata with the purchase order data to provide you a true perspective of contract utilization. That even if the end users have not selected the contract at the purchase order stages or requisitioning stages, we can still look at the material number, material description, compare it to the contract data, and evaluate whether the contract was used or not. And if the contract was used, whether the contracted prices was used or not. The third use case could be where I can join sourcing and contract data and establish a complete source to contract cycle time. So which will help strategic teams to understand their response time right from starting of sourcing initiative all the way till contract signature, so that they can become a lot more efficient in responding to strategic business requirements. So these are a few examples of how a aggregated procurement analytics would look like.
It looks good to that, but I would assume that every organization is at a different stage of maturity and is probably struggling with a different type of challenge at a given point of time. So, where do you suggest organizations at different levels of maturity can start with procurement analytics?
Yes, Siddha, absolutely. Different organizations will be at a different maturity when it comes to procurement analytics. Some teams who are just starting on procurement maturity journey may be figuring out a way to start reporting on savings, while a more mature organization might be dealing with issues of tracking and reporting scope 3 emissions on their procurement spend. To address different possibilities, we have devised a roadmap across 3 different stages: acceptable analytics, advisable analytics, and admirable analytics. The first stage, the acceptable analytics, is intended for organizations who are just getting started. So as the name suggests, right, acceptable analytics is a stepping stone for an organization to start capturing data consistently and report on some fundamental metrics. They are creating an analytics framework which is just acceptable, that yes, they have procurement analytics in place. The second stage, advisable metrics, the organizations are tracking much more commonly used metrics and comprehensively indicate the health of procurement. So there the organizations are a lot more mature. And the third stage is intended for a very mature organization. Admirable analytics will help you track advanced reporting and insights use cases such as fraud detection, ESG scope 3 reporting, team effectiveness, and so on. At this stage, actions are being taken by procurement and business users on many uncommon metrics. So acceptable is for stage 1, advisable is for stage 2, and admirable is for stage 3. Collectively, the 3-stage framework allows organizations of different maturity to take advantage of procurement analytics and improve the maturity of decision making. And it is perfectly okay if organizations take a few years to go from acceptable stage all the way to admirable stage.
Okay, so now that we have discussed about the process and the methodology, let's go back to the beginning of a conversation where we discussed about technology proliferation. Would all the insights would be more suitable for organizations that are using any particular procurement analytics platform?
It is interesting that you framed it this way. The fundamental problem we aim to solve at Polestar is to make procurement analytics agnostic to the technology platform that is being used by any organization. So we have integration utilities that can pull data from many common third-party platforms. And for uncommon data sources, our teams are very capable to write a quick service to pull the data in the required format. Once all the data is available with us, we can host it in a data warehouse, and then we run our analytics on top of it and present the result in a visualization platform of client's choice. It could be Power BI, Click, Tableau, or any other. The main aim at Polestar is to democratize the insight part of procurement analytics and make it readily available to all decision makers throughout source to pay cycle, irrespective of procurement technologies in use. So that is the main intention. So I would say the short answer is no, the procurement analytics is not favoring any particular procurement technology. It can pull data from any technology and present data into a centralized data visualization platform. I hope that answers your questions.
Yes, Siddharth, you did. And thank you for your time. It has been a wonderful and a knowledgeable experience talking with you today. Hope we can connect really soon for a more enriching discussion about procurement insights.
Absolutely. Pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much for hosting me, Sudha. Looking forward to many more such insightful conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.